More haunted places in London, unseen by most, from forgotten taverns and shadowed churches to eerie corridors where whispers linger. Join us as we uncover the ghostly side of a city that never sleeps. Rose and Crown. In Mayfair, on Old Park Lane, stands a pub whose cellars once held men awaiting the gallows. The Rose and Crown, today, appears like any other London public house. Warm lights, polished wood, the hum of conversation. Yet beneath its floors, history lingers with a cruel edge. For condemned prisoners on their way to Tyburn, this was no ordinary stop. The cellars of the Rose and Crown became their final holding place, a cold chamber where men spent their last night before the rope. Imagine the fear, the prayers, the cries echoing off damp stone. Some drank heavily to numb the dread, others begged for mercy that would never come. Those emotions, so sharp and final, are said to have imprinted themselves upon the building. Over the years, stories have emerged of figures moving in the cellars long after closing time. Shadows drift across the walls, doors creak open, though no hand touches them, and footsteps echo in the dark when no one is below. Staff speak of sudden chills sweeping through the bar, as if unseen prisoners still shuffle in chains, pacing their final steps. One landlord, locking up for the night, descended into the cellar to check the barrels. He later confessed that the air was unbearably heavy, and in the corner he saw a man crouched, clutching his knees, rocking gently as though waiting for dawn. The landlord blinked and the figure was gone, but the smell of earth and sweat lingered in the air. He never went alone to the cellars again. Visitors, too, have felt uneasy sudden pressure in the chest, the prickling sensation of eyes watching from behind. Some report the sound of muffled sobs rising through the floorboards into the bar itself, fading just as quickly. Today, the Rose and Crown serves as a lively spot in Mayfair, yet it remains steeped in grim memory. Patrons raise their glasses, but below their feet lies the echo of final nights of men who never walked free again. And some say the cellars still remember keeping company with shadows that never left. The Old Bailey. On the busy streets of London stands the Old Bailey, the city's central criminal court. To most, it is a place of justice and verdicts, of solemn wigs and heavy words. Yet the ground it rests upon carries a far darker history. For here once stood Newgate Prison, a place of misery, despair, and countless executions. Newgate was infamous. Its cells were overcrowded, disease spread unchecked, and the condemned awaited death in conditions few could endure. Men and women alike walked from its gates to Tyburn, some weeping, others defiant, many protesting innocence to the last breath. The stones of Newgate absorbed centuries of human suffering, and when the prison was torn down, those echoes did not vanish. Since then, strange sightings have unsettled those who work in the Old Bailey. A figure in a black cloak is said to drift silently through its corridors, appearing without warning. Some who have glimpsed him believe he was once a highwayman, falsely accused of crimes he never committed, executed for a life he did not live. His restless soul is thought to return, protesting the injustice of his fate. Accounts vary. At times he is seen standing motionless in a doorway, his face obscured, his outline unnervingly clear against the walls. At other times, footsteps echo down empty corridors, the steady tread of boots upon stone, though no living person is near. Lawyers, clerks, even security staff have spoken quietly of sudden chills sweeping through courtrooms, the temperature dropping as if someone unseen has entered. One night, a watchman closing the building reported the distinct sound of chains dragging across the floor behind him. Turning sharply, He saw only the darkness of the corridor stretching away, yet the sound continued steady, relentless, until it faded into silence. He refused to patrol that wing again, alone. For all its majesty, the Old Bailey cannot fully escape the weight of its past. Trials continue, verdicts are read, and justice is pronounced. But beneath the rituals of law lie centuries of anguish, fear, and the blood of those who met their end at Newgate. And some say the black cloaked figure still lingers, a silent reminder that justice once denied can echo long after the final sentence is carried out. St James Garlickhythe, hidden on Garlick Hill in the city of London, stands the church of St James Garlickhythe. Its name is curious, its spire elegant, yet those who know its story speak of a guardian unlike any other. For within its vaults, a discovery was made that still casts a shadow today. In the 1850s, while workmen were repairing the crypt, they uncovered a mummified body. The figure was remarkably preserved, and Londoners quickly christened him Jimmy Garlick. No one could say with certainty who he was, perhaps a medieval parishioner, perhaps a victim of plague. What is certain is that his body remained in the church for decades, a silent relic resting beneath the stones. But Jimmy did not rest quietly. Whispers grew that his spirit lingered in the church, not to frighten, but to protect. During the Second World War, when bombs rained upon London and churches fell in ruins, St James Garlickhythe was spared destruction. Some parishioners claimed to see a robed figure moving through the building on those nights, a guardian in shadow, ensuring the survival of his church. Many believed it was Jimmy keeping watch. Even today, visitors sometimes report strange sights. A tall man robed in darkness, glimpsed near the altar, vanishing into the air. Sudden changes of temperature sweeping through the nave. A presence that seems to hover just behind, not menacing, but watchful. Some even claim a ghostly cat prowls the pews, darting between shadows, as though it too has chosen to remain bound to this holy place. One wartime warden recalled entering the church after an air raid to check for damage. He swore he saw a figure kneeling before the altar, robed motionless, though the building should have been empty. As he approached, the figure dissolved into mist. Moments later, the all-clear sounded outside. The church stood unharmed, while others nearby lay in ruins. Today, St James Garlickhythe is best known for its history and unusual name, yet the legend of Jimmy Garlick persists. Some regard him as a benevolent protector, others as a restless soul bound to the place he loved in life. Either way, his shadow remains woven into the story of the church, a reminder that not all guardians wear flesh and blood. Greyfriars Churchyard. In the heart of the city of London, near King Edward Street, lies Greyfriars Churchyard. Today, it appears as a peaceful garden, its neat paths and flower beds softening the stones. Yet the soil beneath is heavy with a grim past, and many claim that the dead here do not lie quietly. Greyfriars was once a great Franciscan friary, a place of worship and burial for nobles and monarchs. Centuries of upheaval left it ruined, but the churchyard remained a place of interment for figures whose stories were far from serene. Among the most infamous was Queen Isabella of France, remembered in history as the she-wolf of France. It is said she had her husband, King Edward II, murdered in a most brutal fashion. Her body was laid here with Edward's severed head placed upon her chest, a macabre burial that has fueled tales of her restless spirit wandering the grounds. She is not alone. Lady Margaret Hungerford, executed for the murder of her husband, is also said to haunt the churchyard, her figure appearing beneath the trees on moonlit nights. Elizabeth Barton, known as the Holy Maid of Kent, who prophesied against King Henry VIII and was burned alive for her defiance, has been seen kneeling in spectral prayer. Alongside them, witnesses report a hooded monk pacing silently, and even the apparition of a ghostly dog padding between the graves as though still keeping guard. One evening, a passerby crossing the churchyard swore he heard chanting low and resonant, though no service was being held. Glancing about, he caught sight of a robed figure gliding between the stones. Before he could cry out, the figure dissolved, leaving only silence. Others speak of sudden chills, or the feeling of unseen eyes following them, especially near the old burial plots. Greyfriars today is a quiet green space amid the city's bustle, its benches offering rest to workers and visitors. Yet beneath the flowers and grass lies earth steeped in betrayal, prophecy, and violence. The stories of Isabella Hungerford Barton and countless others linger like a shroud, making Greyfriars less a garden of peace and more a gathering place for ghosts who cannot be forgotten. Georgian House Hotel. In the heart of London stands the Georgian House Hotel, its elegant facade and welcoming interior disguising a reputation that unsettles even the staff who work there. Guests come expecting charm and comfort, but some leave with stories that haunt them long after their stay. The building itself dates back to the 19th century, and with its history comes the whispers of those who never truly left. Over the decades, managers and receptionists alike have reported occurrences they cannot explain. Children's laughter has echoed through empty corridors at night, playful and light, though no child was present. Doors open silently without keys, and elderly men in outdated clothing have been glimpsed, letting themselves into rooms that moments later prove unoccupied. Guests, too, have felt the weight of the unseen. Some speak of sudden cold patches in otherwise warm suites. Others recall hearing footsteps approach their door in the early hours only to find no one outside. Disembodied voices drift along the stairwells, murmuring just beyond comprehension. Those brave enough to remain often confess they felt watched throughout the night as though eyes lingered from every dark corner. One receptionist told of working late when she saw a figure glide across the lobby, an old man in a long coat, his hat low, his gait steady. He approached the staircase and vanished midway up, leaving behind only the faint scent of tobacco. Shaken, she checked the guest list. No such man had checked in. Another guest, woken by a persistent chill, described seeing a child standing at the foot of the bed, smiling faintly before dissolving into the air. He left before dawn, unwilling to stay another night. Despite these stories, the Georgian House Hotel remains popular, its rooms booked by visitors seeking a taste of London heritage. Yet beneath the warmth of hospitality, an older presence stirs. Perhaps it is the imprint of countless lives once lived within these walls, or perhaps certain spirits find the hotel too familiar to leave behind. Today, staff speak of the building with a mixture of affection and unease. The laughter of phantom children, the silent footsteps of strangers, the voices in the dark, all are woven into the identity of the Georgian house. Guests may come seeking charm, but they often leave with a memory that chills them to the bone. Royal Albert Hall. The Royal Albert Hall is known across the world as a palace of music and performance. Its great dome and sweeping balconies have hosted concerts, ceremonies, and the most celebrated artists of the age. Yet behind its splendor, the hall carries a reputation that is less harmonious for some. Say its corridors and galleries are crowded not only with audiences, but with ghosts. Among the most famous tales are those of the Girls, two young women in Victorian dress, lively and laughing, who appear briefly each year in the early hours of November the 2nd. They are seen in the basement near door 6, their giggles echoing in the silence before they vanish into the shadows of the kitchen corridor. Staff have blamed them for sudden tappings, footsteps, and even small accidents late at night, as though their mischief continues long after death. Another presence said to haunt the hall is that of Father Willis the organ builder. His stooped figure in a black skullcap is glimpsed when maintenance work is carried out on the great instrument he created. Those who see him describe a cold, heavy air settling behind the pipes, as though he still watches over the sound he once shaped with his hands. But the phantoms of the Royal Albert Hall are many. A man dressed in white, crossing the stage, vanishing before he reaches the wings. A couple in Victorian clothing, fading into one of the boxes. A young boy leaning from the gallery railings, his frilled shirt glowing faintly in the dark. Even a military officer astride a chestnut horse has been reported in the lighting gallery high above the stage, a sight so strange it left witnesses speechless. One security guard patrolling the ladies' lavatories encountered something beyond explanation, a pulsating grey mass of light, stretching from floor to ceiling, shifting with patches of darkness. It hovered, throbbing silently before dissolving into nothing. He resigned shortly after, unwilling to face the night watches again. Temperature drops, sudden mists, voices in empty corridors, all have been whispered of by staff and performers alike. To step inside the Royal Albert Hall is to enter a place of grandeur, but also one heavy with unseen eyes. The applause of audiences may fade, but some say the laughter, the footsteps, and the figures in shadow continue long after the curtain falls. The Parkland Walk, Spriggan. There is a path in North London where the city seems to fall away, swallowed by trees and ivy. The Parkland Walk follows the old railway line between Finsbury Park and Alexandra Palace, now overgrown, the trackbeds softened with moss and tangled roots. By day, joggers and dog walkers pass without concern. But at dusk, the air grows heavier, and those who know the stories tread with unease. The spookiest stretch lies near Crouch End, where a disused railway arch looms across the path. It is here that locals whisper of the Spriggan, a spirit said to guard the place. In folklore, Spriggans are mischievous, even malevolent creatures, guardians of ruins and treasures. Here, the Spriggan is imagined as a tall, twisted figure of stone and shadow, crouched beneath the arch, watching with patient malice. Some dismiss it as nothing more than a piece of public art, a sculpture installed in the 1980s, depicting a goblin-like figure clinging to the brickwork. Yet over the years, walkers have reported far more than stone. They speak of glowing eyes flashing in the dark, of sudden rustlings in the undergrowth when no wind blows, of footsteps echoing on the path behind them, quickening when they quicken, halting when they stop. One man recalled pausing beneath the arch at twilight. He felt a weight pressing upon his chest, a prickling at the back of his neck. Glancing upward, he swore the Spriggan's stone face had shifted its mouth, curling into a grin. Terrified, he hurried away, but the sound of something following clung to his steps until he burst back into the open streets. Others tell of children bursting into tears as they near the arch, pointing to the figure with wide eyes, though they cannot explain why. Dogs, too, are said to growl and refuse to pass their hackles, raise their bodies rigid with fear. Whether spirit sculpture or something stranger, the Spriggan has secured its reputation. For even if one believes the tales are only imagination, the arch still carries a charge of unease. To walk the Parkland Walk is to wander through nature, reclaiming the city. But to pass the Spriggan is to feel that the city is watching back through eyes that may not entirely belong to stone. Prospect of Whitby. On the banks of the Thames at Wapping stands one of London's oldest riverside taverns. The Prospect of Whitby has served sailors, smugglers, and merchants for nearly 5 centuries. Its floorboards have soaked up laughter, arguments, and spilled ale, but also the darker echoes of crime and punishment. For the river outside was once a place of execution, and the pub itself a favourite haunt of one of England's most feared judges. The infamous Judge Jeffreys, known as the hanging judge for the merciless sentences he passed in the 17th century, was said to drink here. Legend insists his ghost remains pacing the rooms where he once plotted the fates of those who stood before him. Patrons speak of a brooding presence in the upper rooms, a heaviness in the air, as though judgment still lingers long after the court has closed. But Jeffreys is not the only spirit tied to the Prospect. Tales tell of Mary Frith, better known as Moll Cutpurse, the notorious pickpocket and madam of the 17th century. Her raucous laughter is said to echo in the corners of the tavern, the sound of a woman who defied convention and paid no heed to respectability. Some claim her apparition, dressed in men's clothes, as she often was in life, has been seen striding boldly through the bar before vanishing into thin air. Visitors have reported strange happenings: tankards sliding across tables without touch, sudden drops of icy air in crowded rooms, footsteps sounding from above when no one is there. One landlord spoke of hearing a voice whispering just behind his ear late at night, the words unintelligible, but the tone mocking, almost cruel. Startled, he turned to find the room empty, the candles flickering as if disturbed by a hidden hand. The Thames itself adds to the tavern's chilling aura. Outside, the Prospect prisoners were once tied to posts and left to the mercy of the tide, their deaths slow and merciless. Locals claim that on stormy nights, the cries of the condemned can still be heard, carried on the wind, mingling with the sound of waves against the embankment. Today, the Prospect of Whitby is a celebrated London pub, drawing visitors with its history and riverside views. Yet for those who linger after dark, when the laughter fades and the river grows restless, the sense of judgment and mischief remains. Here, ale is poured, but so too are the memories of London's most infamous souls. Fortnum and Mason. In the heart of Piccadilly stands Fortnum and Mason, a department store synonymous with luxury and refinement. Its glittering displays and elegant counters give little hint of the darker tales whispered by those who have worked here late into the night. For behind the polished facade, Fortnum's is said to be one of London's most haunted establishments. One of the most unsettling presences is that of a Victorian gentleman in a stovepipe hat. He is described not as benevolent, but malevolent, radiating a chill that drives even seasoned staff away. Security guards have spoken of encounters so disturbing that some quit their posts altogether. Believed by some to be the spirit of a stonemason killed in a tragic accident nearby in 1844, his ghost prowls the upper floors, heavy with resentment over his violent, untimely death. But he is far from alone. On the Duke Street staircase, the figure of a lady in grey drifts, silently thought to be Anne Fortnum, who died in the apartment above the shop in 1847. She is said to wander in sorrow, searching for a lost love taken from her in the Napoleonic Wars. Guests and staff alike have seen her descend the stairs, fading before she reaches the ground. Other parts of the store have their own disturbances. A young architect who fell to his death during renovations in 1929 is said to haunt the stock rooms. On the second floor, poltergeist activity has long been reported. Soaps and perfumes moved overnight. Heavy objects hurled across the floor, even caught once on CCTV as a shadowy figure appeared at 3 in the morning. In the kitchens, pots and pans rattle, sometimes flying across the room as if hurled by unseen hands. In the lower levels, staff speak of the pushing ghost, an unseen force that shoves people aside with startling strength, often targeting cleaners late at night. Others hear the sound of typing and conversation in a long unused cupboard that served as an office during the Blitz. When the door is opened, the voices continue undisturbed, as if the wartime staff never truly left. Perhaps most chilling of all is the crypt, where a cold presence is said to settle after dark. Some believe it to be the ghost of John Mason, co-owner of the business, who died suddenly of a heart attack in the store in 1837. He had no family and no home beyond the business itself. It seems fitting then that he has chosen never to leave. By day, Fortnum and Mason dazzles with splendor, its name a symbol of London's elegance. But when the crowds have gone, its staircases, storerooms, and shadowed corners whisper another story, one of lingering spirits, unsettled by tragedy, who still claim the store as their own. St Andrew by the Wardrobe. Tucked away on a quiet street in the city of London stands the Church of St Andrew by the Wardrobe. Its unusual name recalls the King's Great Wardrobe, a storehouse of royal garments that once stood nearby. The church itself dates back to the Middle Ages, rebuilt after the Great Fire and scarred once again during the Blitz. Though modest in size, it holds a legend that chills all who hear it. For within this church hangs a bell named Gabriel. Unlike other bells, Gabriel is said to toll of its own accord, ringing not for service nor for celebration, but as a warning of death or disaster. Its sudden sound has long been regarded as an omen. Some parishioners claimed that whenever Gabriel rang, without human hand, news soon followed of tragedy, the passing of a figure in the parish, a calamity in the city, or sorrow yet to come. Such tales blur the line between superstition and haunting. Yet those who have heard the bell insist upon its uncanny timing. One clerk in the 19th century recalled being startled by the sound of Gabriel in the dead of night, though no verger was present and no rope pulled. The next morning, word reached the church that a fire had claimed lives in a nearby street. To him, there was no doubt Gabriel had rung in warning. More recent whispers speak of the bell sounding faintly in the empty tower, a hollow echo that vibrates through the stones, though the clapper lies still. Visitors pausing in the churchyard at twilight sometimes swear they hear it, a single, mournful note carried on the wind, vanishing as suddenly as it began. The church itself remains a place of peace, serving its congregation, as it has for centuries. Yet beneath its quiet prayers lingers the sense of something more. Whether a spirit bound to the tower or a supernatural echo carried through time, the bell of Gabriel has left its mark on the legend of St Andrew by the Wardrobe. Even now, Londoners lower their voices when speaking of it, for in a city filled with countless stories of haunting, few are as eerie as a bell that rings for the dead before death has even arrived.